It's time for the Daily Stand Up Podcast presented by Agile Dad with your host, Lee Henson. Without any further ado, let's get started. Those who know me know that I feel like I'm pretty well versed in Agile, but I had a conversation this past week that really became interesting to me. So let me explain how it happened because it's kind of funny. So I had a young lady in my class, and she was from the United Kingdom. Now, I love when I get international representatives. I love when I get people from other countries. It's just totally awesome. And we're talking about different concepts. And one of the homework assignments that I give them is to visit my podcast, to choose a topic, and to search for that topic, listen to at least one episode, and report back which episode they listened to and what their takeaway was and the date the episode was published. Well, this young lady, she was so adorable. She said, she says, I'll tell you right now. She says, I was very shocked. I said, okay. She goes, I went to the website and I did my search. I said, okay. She goes, I couldn't find anything on Whitesnake. And I'm like, Whitesnake? And I'm like, you mean like the 80s hair band, like the rock band Whitesnake? Tawny Katan Whitesnake? Here we go again, Whitesnake? I was just trying to feed a sentence. She goes, yes, Whitesnake. And I'm like, no. I'm like, I couldn't make out what she was saying. Now, those of you who know me know that I pride myself on being a fairly decent linguist. I can understand most cultures. I can understand most languages. I can even speak broken languages. But this was just something that it made me laugh. And then finally, I got the courage. And I said, "Would you mind typing it in chat?" I said, "If you type it in chat," I said, "it's gonna make it a lot easier for me." And when she typed it in chat, I smiled and started laughing. What she typed in chat was waste snake, WASTESNAKE. Now, color me embarrassed. This was the first time in a long time that I did not understand what she was saying. But even more embarrassed, get this, I got to tell you what made me more embarrassed. More embarrassed was I did not, I wasn't familiar with that term. I was like, what is this term? Now, I will say that I have heard of this after reading and exploring the concept. I've heard of this concept before. And the concept is something that comes originally, I believe, from Lean. And the way it works is you're identifying waste or things that are causing you to lose your footing. So that way, when at the end of a cycle, if you don't deliver everything that should be delivered, you can turn around and say, well, look at this giant waste snake. All these things came in and interrupted us, or we had to pivot, or we had to make adjustments. Now, if you know me well, you know that I don't do well with shoulder taps and I don't do well with interruptions. And this is something that I teach in my class, and I teach people I handle it completely different. So I started doing some research because I said, is this something that I need to start incorporating into my classes? Is this something I need to make a podcast episode about? What does this have to do with many things? And I started digging into references, and I started going down the lean trail, the lean path, right? The Kanban path. And I found a reference to Tim Woods. And I'm like, oh, I know Tim Woods, right? Transport, inventory, motion, waiting, overproduction, overprocessing, defects, etc., right? I knew where this was. And these are all places where you can identify that waste exists. Now, for me, the whole thing about not feeding a hidden factory, identifying waste, moving forward with high quality, addressing needs promptly, all those things, they make perfect sense to me. But I had just never locked myself into this concept before. And I said, okay. I said, so what do I need to know about this waste snake, and what will I teach people, if anything, about it? And what would a podcast episode entail if I talked about it? So, of course, I got the idea. I said, if anybody knows this, I'm going to go turn to Chat GPT and ask Chat GPT, Chat, you're an expert in all things lean. Explain the concept of waste snake to me. And to my chagrin, after doing a search, this is what came back. It said the concept of a waste snake is not a standard term in any major discipline or practice that I'm familiar with. It may be a term for a specific niche or a new concept that hasn't been widely circulated. However, this term is being used in contexts similar to process improvement or systems efficiency. It could potentially refer to a visualization or tracking method for waste in a system, similar to tools used in lean management like value stream mapping. In lean methodology, waste refers to any activity that consumes resources but creates no value for the customer. Common types of waste include defects, overproduction, waiting, non utilized talent, transportation, inventory, motion, and extra processing. The snake in this context could metaphorically represent the way waste moves or grows through a system, suggesting a need to identify and eliminate it continually. Okay, so now that I read that, I'm like, oh, okay, so this does actually make sense, but it's just a concept that I hadn't heard about, Chat hadn't heard about, and I'm like, okay, so this kind of lays it out for me. And when I went to Google, I found some results, but I didn't find a definitive, oh, here's a whole thread on this or whatever the case may be. It was just really interesting to me. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is, as part of my journey, I was hoping to find a Reddit thread or a lean thread or something that really talked about it. And the closest thing I found was a year ago. There was someone from the UK who created a video on a topic called "What is the Waste Snake Technique?" And he put together a technique that Scrum Masters could use to identify and to make waste snake visible and transparent. Because apparently the argument is that waste was getting hidden in the hidden factory, and that it wasn't apparent that waste existed. And this is a concept of using sticky notes to identify waste and literally putting them on and above a Kanban board or around a Kanban board to show how long the snake can get if you're running away with things. And while I appreciate the intent of what it's trying to do, the explanation that I gave my students, I'm sure you're wondering, was that this sounds like it's feeding a symptom instead of solving the problem. So if we're trying to solve the problem, interruptions and shoulder tapping, we need to figure out ways to incorporate less context switching and understand the cost of context switching and the cost of waste so that we can prevent those things from happening without having to go down this path of creating a snake of things that we had to execute that diverted us from the task. We need to find a way to address the diversions, the interruptions, more so than we need to address the need for creating a snake, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So it was one of those things where we had a hearty conversation about the role of the Scrum Master. And we had a hearty conversation about how to handle debt and defects. And we had a hearty conversation about how to handle shoulder taps and interruptions, especially from leadership. And I think that after we had those three discussions, we came to the conclusion together that while Waste Snake is a great thing, it is a good way to identify symptoms, but it may not be the way to solve the problem. So it was just one of those things where we said, okay, we can all be on the same page there. And that's where we left it. But I thought it'd be fun to introduce this concept to you since it was something that I wasn't familiar with and give you a little bit of background. So I want to thank my student for helping me really learn something new, something that I wasn't familiar with, something that is part of the Agile process that I had no idea. So if you want to learn more about Waste Snake or any other concept, feel free to reach out to us, learn more at agiledad.com. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.